In today's digital age, preserving family history is more important than ever. Echobox, a family-based digital legacy platform, offers a solution. By creating an account, you can invite family members to share their stories and memories. These digital narratives become a valuable resource for future generations, ensuring that family traditions and history are passed down. For seniors, Echobox can be a lifeline. It provides a way to connect with their loved ones, share their experiences, and combat feelings of isolation. By capturing their stories, seniors can leave a lasting legacy and strengthen family bonds. Echobox offers a simple and user-friendly interface, making it easy for seniors to participate. Welcome back, Fading Memories listeners. Thank you so much for joining us again this week. I have an update for you. My friends from Calgary, Canada, and Echobox are back to tell us what's been going on in the last, how many years? I think they were on in 2019, so 5 years. Good Lordy. Anyway, I hope you guys would welcome Tim and Tanis from Echobox. Hi, guys. Thanks for joining me.
Okay,
Hey,
thanks
Jen.
for having us.
Hi.
So, what has been going on with Echobox in the past few years? We've had a tumultuous few years.
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. A little bit of everything in there. And yeah, our last time we chatted, I think our pilot model was just starting to receive some attention from caregivers, which at the time we thought was great. We didn't really think that it would be ever called a revolutionary tool or it would, fit the gap and bridge relationships in a way that we're hearing now. But because of the response after we got some news coverage, it was just obvious that we had to kind of redesign the technology and kind of deliver it more into the healthcare world. And we're just listening with all ears to all the wonderful caregivers that have been helping us out along the way. And so thank you out there to all of you.
Well, thank you. So, for the new listeners, why don't you guys explain what Echobox actually is? Start from there.
Sure.
Yeah, well, Echobox is basically, it's a technology that takes the magic of storytelling and memory keeping and captures it in a simple way and in little pieces where you can kind of choose, whether you want to talk about music or your childhood or fishing holes or recipes. And our pilot model basically had to change because caregivers were saying that all of these things about life and these little tidbits that make us tick are also very powerful memory pieces. They engage people, they familiarize people, they bring people out of seclusion, all these wonderful things that, we slowly had to realize that was the new way of, that was our direction ahead of us. So we retooled it into a way where people could sign up for the service, figure out what we're all about. They can start capturing stories and recordings. Each story that you capture can have 1,000 words, a title, have some links to some videos or online material if it's related, 3 pictures, an audio recording and a video recording. So each little story has like a world in its own to kind of create. And what we've heard from caregivers is just the benefits from coming from all, familiarizing yourself with somebody and what they really love about life can go a long way to, get not just like elevate quality of life for the residents, but it also helps you with your daily routines. You have basically a go-to cheat sheet for difficult times like change times or shower times where you can play a favorite song. You can talk about a childhood memory and all of a sudden the day carries on and everyone's in a happier mood. And we're just trying to do our best to kind of cater to this idea and hopefully we can make it land on its feet.
It's amazing how a picture and, say, my voice telling a story based on the photo or the video from like my childhood can really resonate with somebody. By the time I was responsible for caring for my mom, I don't know, she thought I was her best friend, so I'm not really sure how well that would have resonated because she didn't recognize even childhood pictures of like herself. So they say pictures that were 40 years old.
Right.
Yeah, no, they got to be older than that. I've been out of high school 40 years. Dear God. Maybe 45 years old or so. Yeah. So she thought, it was amazing. So my sister's got dark brown hair, chocolate brown eyes, and olive skin, and I do not. So we don't even look alike. So it was kind of surprising when she didn't recognize anybody in old childhood photos. But it would have been interesting to see her reaction if I had talked about there's a real, I don't know, popular family photo my sister and I sitting on. It's a tree that basically grew sideways. I don't know if it was a branch or a trunk. It was thick enough to be a tree trunk, and we're just sitting there in some really god awful 70s clothing. And it was, she had it enlarged. She had, I think my grandmother had it turned into a painting. I mean, it was everywhere. Couldn't escape that picture. So it would have been interesting to see what her response would have been with, this is me and the sister, and we're in Oregon, and can't figure out what state park it was. I was 9, so we're talking, ooh, Lord, that's a long time ago.
Right.
But I've heard people use photographs and ask, who's this person? And, oh, well, that's me. And then they learn some family history. So it can go both ways. Have you had any experiences like that?
Oh yeah, we have. Well, depending on who we speak with, I mean, there's just so much to be learned in the world of sensory and what that kind of means. Whether we're talking about smells and how vividly they can bring people back to a certain place in time, or your top 5 favorite songs. It's not hard to kind of put yourself in your future shoes and kind of think, boy, what kind of care would I like to be receiving? And for me, I would love my care team to know all of my favorite meals, all of my favorite songs, my favorite movies. I mean, it doesn't seem that difficult. And so for us, we were just thinking, okay, well, what does seem difficult because we don't have a caregiving background and we're not strong with technology is that we had to build this app with a lot of helping hands. And so once again, it's much thanks to the people like yourself that are willing to showcase us, the people, your audience that are in different situations, of course, but they're all a community and they're all listening to you and listening to what you have to say. And so we are just enamored with, being ingratiated to this group of wonderful people. And it's just only helped to realize that there's a lot more listening for us to do than there is talking, and there's a lot to learn. We always feel like we're preaching to the choir. We don't want to, but we're learning more every day. And the closer we can bring this technology to a simple solution where people can kind of not just capture but explore people's memories, then I think that it's a win-win-win for everybody.
Yeah, and I think I'd like to echo that we're constantly learning everything from the caregivers, and it's amazing to learn how they're going to be using Echobox. A lot of it has to do with getting emotional responses from people because, they might not remember necessarily some of the stories, but when you tell them, they get an emotional response to it. And sure, they might forget about it the next day, but you tell the story again and you kind of lift them up and bring them out and get them engaged again through just, again, old memories and that emotional response.
I was laughing because Tim was saying, oh, their favorite movie and their favorite foods. And I'm like over here kind of snickering because I don't really have a favorite anything. I don't like to rewatch movies or TV shows or reread books. So I would be a serious pain in the butt. Somebody was like trying to figure out what would make me happy, but using Echobox, like there are movies that I really enjoyed as a teenager, those typical John Hughes movies from the 80s. My favorite was Pretty in Pink, and pink's my favorite color. So there's a tie-in. And I enjoy murder mystery books. I listen to true crime podcasts. So like there's a tie-in together that you could figure out, and then it'd be like, oh, don't feed Jennifer the same thing day after day because she will get nasty.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
today is Mexican, tomorrow is Asian, then we'll have a little American food.
Yeah, and it's been really encouraging for people to say things like, "Oh, we're focusing on person-centric care, and we're kind of person-centric care." Okay, and we're learning as we go. But yeah, it's difficult for, let's say, a music therapist to show up and not kind of, if they don't have too much of a familiarity with the people, then of course they're going to bring their songbook from the '60s and songbook from the '70s and A lot of other times we've heard that, wow, you're really an engaging solution instead of all these babysitter solutions out there. Like, put on a 50s Western and just watch them go instead of actually kind of seeing what interpersonal things can be kind of mined out and teased out. And if that goes a long way to engage somebody who's in cognitive decline or bring someone out from depression, then I mean, boy, will we ever sleep well at night knowing that we kind of accidentally came up with this? So it's been a wild ride, and we hope that it keeps on going. Yeah.
Me too. Go ahead, Tanis.
Oh, I was just going to say that too. It's really helpful as far as familiarizing caregivers with patients, because we all know that especially in facilities, there's a high turnover rate. And if your facility had Echobox, then the new employee could just sign up right away, and they've got all of the information about all of the patients and what they love about life. So it eases communications in that sense too. So.
Yeah, that was the point I was going to make, was having that knowledge would have been really beneficial with my mom, because I tried music therapy, and I mean, I've talked to at least 3 music therapists for the show. Well, one wasn't a music therapist, but it was still music therapy was the theme. And that never worked with my mom. I mean, it was enough to make you want to bang your head on the wall. And I realized she didn't listen to music when I was growing up. She listened to talk radio. She listened to TV talk shows. I don't know if you guys are probably too young to remember Sally Jesse Raphael with the big glass.
Red glasses. Oh, yeah.
Merv Griffin. I mean, I was in school, so I have to like pull these out of my, those are some deep memories there. And a lot of people have asked, well, did you play her your podcast? I was like, oh God, no. Because sometimes we talked about her, and we talked about Alzheimer's. Right. I was terrified that she would realize the subject matter, that sometimes I mentioned her, and I was like, oh God, no, I'm not doing that. But now I wish I had at least tried. She was far enough along in the disease. I also didn't think she could track, like she couldn't track a TV show for half an hour. So how could she even follow along like with a true crime podcast? I mean, there's no visual, so it's a little bit more like brain heavy in my opinion, because you're either listening to the whole thing or it's just kind of background noise. And I'm like, background noise is exactly why she listened to it. It's kind of why I listen to them working. But I think it would have helped, because it just would have helped them get to know her better. So let's start with, okay, so I've got a new listener, they're a family caregiver, their person isn't in a memory care residence. How would you recommend that they go about starting to use this technology?
Yeah, so you can go to our website, echobox.ca, and join for free. You'll sign up as an administrator, and then there you can put in your storyteller and invite your caregivers to your Echobox account.
So you can really kind of structure your account that way. You sign up, you invite yourself or a member of your team as a caregiver, and then you kind of list your storytellers. And then, from there, you just, sorry, that kind of hijacked your, we do that sometimes. And so it's usually me, sorry.
And your caregiver will get an invite through the email, and then they will actually download the Echobox app on their phone or their tablet and get in that way.
Yeah, and so you sign up online, you invite caregivers, they get invited through the app stores, and they kind of join your account. So it's a private, secure account. And from there, you just start choosing topics and choosing stories and running with it. There's different levels to our subscriptions. You can check out our how Echobox works on echobox.ca. I'm just in the process of making a how-to video that'll be up there soon. So depending on when you hear this or see this, it'll be up there.
Awesome. So let's say you said that there was like tasks of daily living reminders or prompts. I would think that would be a good place to start if they're not living with you or living in a memory care residence, because if they're still at home, they might need some of those little tools to kind of help get them through the day, help them remain independent. So how does that part work? Because that part's a little bit newer than the first time we talked.
Right. Well, as we've developed it as a healthcare solution, we've run up against, there's HIPAA compliancy that you have to make sure that you are not dealing with schedules, you are not dealing with certain. So we've had to we even had our hands slapped away from the idea that someone mentioned, I'm a little nervous, mentioning someone's favorite meal, that's technically medical information. And we were kind of like, okay. Well, we will flirt with those waters, but we don't want to go so far as to be like a notebook or a checklist. So really what we are is a person-centric, emotionally intelligent tool that uses downstream thinking and capturing of memories for future benefits. And the earlier you start, like you were saying with your mother, the more there's going to be the benefit from down the line when you've planted all those seeds, and hopefully there's some things to work with as far as memories go.
Yeah, and as far as that goes, every topic, when you do click on it, we do have a little paragraph that does kind of provide some hints as to, how you would engage with somebody, some helpful tips for people that maybe aren't as comfortable.
And on top of all this, it will be an ongoing evolution, because we can't wait to hear back from people who say things like, boy, I really do wish you just had this one little notepad that we can make some notes on. Or, what would be a good topic is da-da-da. I would be happy to hear this sort of information. So if you're listening, please check us out. Even if you're just confused by it, give us a call, give us an email, support@echobox.ca, and we will get back to you, and we don't bite.
I like that you don't bite. And the website and the email, I'll make sure to put in the show notes. What was the question I was going to ask? So do you upload videos? Like if I have a video on my phone, I'm assuming it's pretty seamless to just upload it to the app.
Yeah, you can either take one live or you can add it, as long as it's not too big, because file sizes, we had to kind of limit, you can't take like an hour-long video or whatever. So they're pretty short, but it's to capture that little snippet of somebody's story about that one item that they might be talking about. So yeah, we can't wait to hear that anybody listening wants to go on there and check it out, and any questions or advice, criticism, anything you got, please throw it at us.
I can almost see like a short video. Before it got too complicated, I would take my mom and one of the other Dianes. I think you guys probably remember the story that my mom named Diane befriended two other Dianes.
Right.
It's still confusing. But I would take them both to the nail salon. Not all three. I was not that insane. And I could imagine as the more help she needed, the less she accepted and a little bit more combative she got. So a little video of her at the nail salon, like, see, this is what we're going to do. And then, like my nails, I'm getting them done tomorrow, so I don't want to show those off. But, we're going to, do something really pretty with your nails like I did, da-da-da-da. I could see that really being beneficial, just because it's, you're speaking to them in a reassuring, uplifting, this is going to be fun kind of way. They can see that they've done it. I would hope she would have recognized herself. That's the biggest challenge. But yeah, I could see, I don't know how you would do something similar for showering. That was her biggest challenge. She really didn't want anybody helping her shower. She was totally unable to do it herself. So
right,
that one would be harder.
Yeah, and these little codes to crack are out there, right? We heard this wonderful story about a gentleman who had a lot of difficulty when it was bedtime, especially if you told him that it was bedtime. And his care team basically said, by coincidence, one day, MASH came on, the show MASH from the 70s. And for whatever reason, this gentleman heard that song, popped out of his chair and said, oh, time for bed. Good night, everybody. And the care team was just kind of like, okay. So they made sure not to play that during the day, but they started to actually use the MASH theme song as to help him with his bedtime. So they're out there. These little things are out there, and we can't wait to hear back from people that are using it and discovering ways that we never intended for it to benefit people. So, yeah.
I think the MASH theme song, I think that came on around my bedtime when I was a kid. My dad loved MASH, but I remember watching it. So I'm like trying to puzzle out what time of day he was going to bed. But yeah, just tripping over that little tidbit. I'm sure they were like super thrilled to experience that, because, this is so simple. And those triggers are really they're really embedded, because I think MASH was on for a long time. I forget how many seasons. And I can hear the theme song in my head, which is funny.
Yeah.
But what other kind of stories do you have of caregivers using the app?
Well, boy, there's lots of them. I mean, there is the first group that used the app was actually our friends down the street because it was brand new. It was a pilot model. And unfortunately, we didn't develop and launch it in time for them to capture their grandmother's story. But they were able to, they had a big family get together and they used Echobox to posthumously,
Yeah.
put a collection of memories and stories together for them. So pretty much right out of the box, it was being used in a way that we just didn't anticipate.
Yeah.
It just goes on and on in speech therapy. It's always great to, the more familiar you are with something, whether it's lyrics or something that you've memorized, the national anthem, if that's what it is, if it's going to help people get through this sort of muscle memory and get back onto their feet, then boy, that's great. These things are being discovered almost on a daily basis, even out to the point where, I think someone suggested recently that, First Nations and our native population would be able to record their traditions and oral histories in a better way and pass them along digitally now. And it's kind of like, okay, we just got to focus on, we just have to, like, this is great, but like, we're just going to try to make it simple for everybody and see where the dominoes take us.
And that sounds almost like what they call when they use pharmaceutical drugs in a way that aren't intended, but they're done medically, if that makes sense. They call them black label, I think. So that's kind of like a black label use of Echobox, but it makes perfectly good sense because that's a simple way to pass that down. And I know, we have the same problem with our native population. The other word was not popping into my brain. And a lot of them didn't, a lot of ours also went to schools where they didn't learn their native language. So yeah, that would actually be really good off-brand use.
Right.
But I can also see, like, it's amazing the stories you hear at funerals. So when my paternal grandmother died in 2021, she was 103. I learned more stuff about her at that funeral, and it was small because it was still during COVID. And it was like she would take her three boys. A lot of times, my dad was 8 years older than the middle son and 12 years older than the youngest. So a lot of times it was just the two younger ones, but they would go to the ice cream parlor, or I don't know if you guys had Thrifty, like the 5 and dime store where you go and get like the square ice cream. And she would always get vanilla. All the flavors of the world, she would get vanilla. And my uncles both had really funny stories to tell about, getting in the car and going and getting ice cream. And now out of the 3 boys, there's only one left. And so we should capture some of those stories before he's gone. Although he's vowing, neither of my uncles got to 78, but my last paternal uncle says he has to get to 82 to break even on Social Security. And so I said, hey, don't just break even, like make them pay. So hopefully he'll be around a while longer. But yeah, you learned some pretty interesting things. My dad's funeral was huge. It was almost too much. And because he'd been in 4 different Rotary clubs and he did ham radio for the Salvation Army, there was a lot of stories. I mean, we could have been there for days. And, having like a third party person going around and capturing some of those little tidbits. The gal that donated the kidney to my dad was also at his funeral, so that could have been an interesting story. But you learn a lot at funerals, so that might be like a little clue, like a way to fill in like your parents' information through stories about a grandparent who might have recently passed away. So, how does the app work for caregivers that are in memory care residents? It's like the people my mom had to deal with.
Sure. Yeah. Well, same sort of sign up process. You go to the website. You would, depending on how big your team is and how many residents and people you have in your community, you would choose an adequate subscription. And once the administrator signed up, they would invite all the members of the care team through email. All that entire team would accept, access to that account. And from there on in, they would have the little icon on all of their little devices. And so it's a fully functioning tool. And when one caregiver goes in and captures a story with one resident and enters it, it's now entered in all of those into the system. So now that little, MASH story helping piece or whatever would be accessible to everybody. And so what we're trying to do is make it possible for this platform to not just that one person with that one MASH story, but with everybody with multiple stories. And then all of a sudden quality of life goes up and caregiver burnout goes down. And again, we're feeling so lucky that we kind of accidentally stumbled across this, and we do really consider it lightning in a bottle. We just want to deliver it to where it needs to be, and every day we get closer, every day we learn more. And so I just going to keep on saying thank you, but thank you.
Well, that's probably a good time to let people know that you guys are in that very small club of guests who have not been caregivers. So how did you stumble on this idea? Because obviously it wasn't, the vast majority of my guests are caregivers turned creators. So they would be people like yourself and me combined, people who did caregiving and went, I need a podcast that talks about things that I want to hear about. Oh, okay. I guess I'm going to have to make it myself, which is why I've been here all these years. I was the second caregiver podcast. So, I'm number 2. I try harder. And, it's because I love to read, but you can only read caregiver books for so long. And then it's like, ugh. I got to get to my murder mysteries. Those are but you guys are not in that group. So how did you stumble on this idea?
Yeah, well, it was back in, I think, was it 2016? We saw a YouTube video of an old widower who had lost the sound of his wife's recording from his answering machine. And he kind of put up a big stink, and the company that had revamped the system actually gave him that sound recording back. So the YouTube video is watching him the moment that he gets his wife's voice back, and just seeing his emotion and how touched he was by hearing that again just got us thinking about lack of technology for seniors and sharing of their memories.
And that just kind of, once you kind of think of it in a personal way, you kind of think, well, boy, what did Nana and Grandpa have to kind of capture their stuff? And would they have even trusted Facebook if they wanted to? And, all these sorts of things, and advertising and third party, we just thought, boy, I wonder if we made just the simplest platform that we could, that could just simply, honor each other in a way that we are not really taking advantage of yet. Technology seems to be focused on the younger generations with a disposable income. Seniors kind of get left behind, and from the starting point, they don't really have that much, to a varying degree, familiarity with technology in the first place. So, we're just trying to slip in the side door and supply a little bit of a tool for the people that are helping these people get through their day to day. And boy, it's been super rewarding. And again, thank you.
Yeah, so it was when our pilot model was released. Then we had national news and international news, and that's when we heard from the caregivers telling us what we had. And that's what made us turn around, redesign, and relaunch. So we've been launched as of what?
September. We did a couple of tweaks. So we did a couple of tests just to make sure. We're looking forward to a strategic marketing campaign. Finally, we'll get there. I've never been there yet. So, but we're finally on top of things, and it's much thanks to people like you.
Yeah, it's a learning curve. And I think the challenge that you guys have is kind of similar to me. People don't always identify as a caregiver because they just assume, well, I'm just doing what a spouse does or a loving daughter does, unless that's their job title. A lot of people don't. And I know that for a fact because I didn't identify as a caregiver until my first Alzheimer's caregiver support group. I went, and the facilitator was like, even if your loved one's in a residence, or if they live on their own, or if they live with other family members, it doesn't matter. You're a caregiver. So you're in the right place. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm a caregiver. Okay, I didn't think about that. So that's challenge number 1. Challenge number 2 is the generation that's older than me. I'm an old Gen Xer. Like you said, aren't as familiar with technology. It gets really challenging to keep up. Like, I've never been on TikTok. We just recently had all that TikTok drama. So, it's just like, I was kind of glad I was not on TikTok, but it does get to the point where it's like, I'm happy with what I'm using. Why do I need to go invest all this time and effort into, YouTube or LinkedIn or whatever? So, as my generation ages, because we're like the hybrid generation. We didn't have technology at until we were like in high school, or some of them were younger, but I remember my first computer had a cassette tape drive. Those were really pain in the butt.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have floppies.
Right? Yeah.
Did you guys ever see, I think, what they 7-inch floppies or 12-inch? They were huge. They were way bigger than the 5-inch. I was like, I didn't even know those things existed until I had a job at a company that had these old computers. And, so it gets hard to keep up with technology. So keeping it simple is smart. But I think, there was something you said, the gentleman that lost the recording of his wife's voice on the answering service. That reminds me, it's like, oh, if you record all these different people talking to your loved ones, like maybe early on in their diagnosis when they still recognize everybody and they're still in a good part of their life, you can record all these like little stories or like, oh, hey, like little, almost like voicemail messages would be I think that'd be really cool. But it also reminded me of a story I just recently read. There was an older woman that would like literally hang around this one part of a train station. And it turns out her husband had recorded like the announcements for that particular spot of the train station. I forgot where it was. And it was kind of a similar story. They, life moves on, things change. So they needed to re-record it and his voice disappeared. And they found the old recordings and gave them to her too. So, it's
Great.
yeah, the stories. I'm sure there's thousands of those kinds of stories, but yeah, it's neat that you guys read that and it sparked the idea of creating a way of keeping them. And I think for even family caregivers, but caregivers in a community like Mom was in, so much easier to have it handy on your phone versus they had like little display boxes outside each door that had a photograph like of my mom and her dog and like her favorite color. So it had like a little short biography about my mom. Well, after you're there about a month, you don't even pay any attention to those things. And they weren't really good at reminding family members that maybe it should be updated or changed or refreshed, because that would have been smart. They would add seasonal decor into each one so that it did get a little refreshed, but the information didn't. So I don't even remember what was in it when my mom passed away. So just having it handy, like, oh, isn't this the guy that goes to bed when he hears that's gonna crack me up. Now I'm almost gonna have to go find a streaming episode or someplace to go watch one of it, because I enjoyed that show.
It was a good show.
It was a good show.
Yeah.
It's like one of those that's like gonna last forever. I think it'll be interesting. I plan to live into 103, so it'll be really interesting to see what the cultural references, which ones last that long. That's a long time for now. So it doesn't sound like you have any big updates planned. Sounds like you just had one. Just going to keep learning and innovating, and
Yeah.
hopefully you guys don't ever have to use your own app for caregiving.
Well, what we're gonna start our own Echo boxes up just as a family sort of ongoing living tree, because if it's used separately instead of a caregiving tool and it's more of like an ancestry tool, then you can kind of capture your own family stories and have it an ongoing kind of an ancestry platform. So yeah, we've had a lot of things happen in the last couple of months. We've got a brand new brand ambassador in Michigan named Lance A. Slatton. He's with All Home Care Matters.
I know him.
Yeah, right, Lance.
Great guy.
He's kind of everywhere. And yeah, we've been traveling a little bit. We've been to Texas and Florida and to Seattle and Idaho. We want to just keep on kind of hitting up conferences, keep meeting people. We're all kind of building up right now to kind of, really take a stab at some global marketing. And so for all the people that are in our network now and listening as we speak, we're going for it, and we've put our heart and soul into this thing, and so hopefully we can deliver it to you guys.
Well, there is a brand new, I don't know if it's open yet, gigantic, it might even be an understatement, memory care residence. We're talking multiple buildings. Huge. Like you drive by, you're like, all of that's memory care? Holy bleep. Like, whoa. So I'm headed to Atlanta in a couple days. So I don't know if we're going to drive by them on the way to the airport or not. I will see if I can find out what the name of that company is and pass it on to you guys because, I mean, my mom had I think her residence was like 32, it was like 32, 34 beds. This one's probably like 300.
Wow.
It's or
Right.
more. It's huge. Like
Right.
the whole community my mom lived in, the assisted living memory care community, was probably under 400. And I think this memory care, and it's attached to assisted living, it's blocks long. It's huge. So I will find out about them. Then you can come to Sacramento and, you can either stay with me.
Love to. No, that would never to us. I mean, we'd love to shake hands. We're talking free trials right now. We want to partner up. We want to make affiliations and see how many hands we can shake in the next little while. So that would mean the world to us. Thanks.
Yeah, plus if you're going to Florida, Texas, you went to Idaho and Oregon, you've just bypassed me. Sorry to say, but you missed the best state of them all.
Saving it. We're saving it. That's
Okay, yes. Well, don't come now. It's cold. This is coming out in April. It will be less cold, but still not nice. October is gorgeous. Not too hot, but nice. June's not bad, but we can go from 75 to 95 pretty quick. So we'll work on fall. We'll get you into that community.
We'll be there. Let's do it.
Awesome. So you guys are echobox.ca. Like I said, that's in the show notes because sometimes I forget that it's CA. That stands for Canada, not commerce. So many extensions these days. It's almost hard to keep up with. Like I said, technology can be a pain in the rump. And then we'll just keep up with what you guys are doing.
Sounds fantastic.
Thank you.
so much.
Thank you for giving everybody an update, and I will talk to you guys again soon.
All right.
See you later.
Take care.
Bye-bye.